Good morning, flower friends. This is Pam, Flower Patch Farmhouse, and this morning I'm out in the greenhouse before it gets hot. It's supposed to be 82 degrees. In this greenhouse, it can get quite hot during when it's sunny and warm. The last portion I did in here a couple days ago, this was reading 110, and you start seeing me to perspire in here. It was pretty hot. So I have good ventilation and everything, so the plants in here don't croak, and everything that's left in here I think are heat levers. There's very few things that aren't. So everything's good in here as far as that goes, even though it gets quite hot. This is May. This is the beginning of May. Usually it's not that hot here in May. We can actually be getting snow still many times, but at least the temperatures still are very, very cool, and the nights are cold. Last night or this morning I got up and it was 50 degrees. That's usually the lows during July, not May or even June. So that being said, I was at my in-laws yesterday, and they live down in the Central Valley or the San Joaquin Valley, and it's much warmer. Roses bloom much sooner, much earlier. And there's one rose on their fence. It is like 7 feet tall, 8 feet wide, blooming the most gorgeous pink blooms. It's been there forever. I don't know what it is, but last fall, I got cuttings from it and they didn't take. It just had a bunch of canes. It still was full of bloom, but a bunch of canes that were done blooming. So, stickery. I got me a bunch of cuttings from it. So this morning what I'm going to do, excuse me while I reach for my cutters, which I should have had on hand, I'm going to take some cuttings. Now I want them to be about pencil thickness. I'm going to start at the bottom actually. And like I said, this rose is quite prickly, so I don't want this to be out of water long, so I'm going to put that back in the water overnight. Let's see if you can see this without me stabbing myself to death. I just put it in a tub of water. This is just a little Dollar General little tub I bought for a garden project, but it worked great for sticking these into water overnight. I'm also getting the cup. This is a Starbucks fancy schmancy coffee cup. My husband loves Frappuccinos, the frozen ones, and they make great rose cutting starters or other cuttings too, because it has the dome lid, a little airflow, deep enough, etc. I love using recycled things. Not that he gets these coffees very often, because we don't have a Starbucks up here. So whenever we go down to the valley, he gets himself a Starbucks as a treat. So I'm going to cut this cane. So this is about a pencil thickness, and it's pretty tough. So it's a hardened off cane, really. It's not really new flesh of growth. So I'm going to take a cut from it, and I'm going to defoliate it. And there's some pretty rough spots there. So I could cut it up further and eliminate those, or I can take it down to my table. Let me see, can you see what I'm doing down here? No, I need to tilt you down. Let me tilt you down. Don't mind the mess down here. But, okay, so here I am at my table. I'm just going to shave along here. I might even recut it so that end might have healed overnight, healed over, and I'm just going to wound it a little bit. Now, you don't have to do this. Many times they will root despite that. But this is a pretty, it's not got much flex. So all the help I can give it, great. Now, it's still moist from being in the water. I put my Hormex 8, this is for harder wood cuttings. It's a little bit more powerful than a regular rooting hormone. I do have the one that's not as strong, potent. There's also liquids that you can mix your own potency, so you could try those. But I'm just going to paint it on here. Now this is going to be down in here quite far, so I can put rooting hormone as far up as I wish. Now you'll notice in here I have perlite down here only, and then I have, this is part horticultural sand and part some potting soil. It makes it very loose. but it will hold moisture. Why do I put the perlite down here? I have learned that perlite will hold oxygen. So you're less likely to drown your cuttings, etc., with the perlite in the bottom. I found that out by accident, and if somebody wants to dispute that, go right ahead, but it has worked fabulous for me. So it's just a little trick that I use. You could use all the sand or all the sand or all potting soil if you watch. Now I made a little hole to put this down in, so you don't, some people say, oh, you rub off all the rooting hormone. Well, not really. You don't. So that's down in there. Well, I don't know if that lid will fit now, so be sure your lid will fit. Sometimes I have the stem come out through the center, and that looks like it will be fine. I could make this go down a little deeper. I need to dig the hole a little deeper with the end of the then just put it down in. I think I need to get the rest of those leaves off there. Those can cause mildew, etc. So put it down in there. This is a tough stem, so I can give it a little more pressure. Some of the higher up won't be quite as stiff. So I'm going to continue to cut up this. This one has a joint here. Now what I have to say about these joints where these limbs come off here is a lot of times you will find that they will root right there faster than anywhere else. So I want to make sure I get those underneath the soil. I should just put it up there. And this one kind of grows off this direction, so I'm going to put it in there and see how far. I think I can cut it right up here. Cut this piece off because it's going every which direction. There, I think we have a nice piece. Now I'm going to point this one where this part's pointing inward, so it will go into the center of the hole on the lid. I think I need to dip that in the water. I didn't wound this one. You don't always have to wound them. So I'm getting that on there as much as I can. And I'll put this down in here. I have a whole video on different ways, or 2 videos actually, of starting roses. Simply like this. And it was done in fall. So you can do this throughout the year. Like right now, I couldn't do this from my roses because usually the best time is after they've bloomed. They first bloomed. And I shouldn't have said I can't do this now. You could do this now. You could take cuttings anytime. There's just different reasons why it's not as good of an idea. Let me point you back up so I'm not talking with my head cut off. It's not a good idea, or it's not quite as successful usually. I've done it in fall and got cuttings to root. I've done it in summer, midsummer, and got them to root. And now, like here, this is early. This is still spring, and these are ready to be taken. So it depends on where you're at when you take cuttings to root. And I had just done my garden tour video, and I was sharing with you how I have, and I can actually take you up and show you after I do these other cuttings and put them in. I have another cup to do. I pruned my Eden rose in late fall, early winter. And I just stuck some of the cuttings into a container that was sitting there. It had another different rose in it. Just along the edge. I did 4 or 5 of the prunings, stuck them in that, and they've got leaves and everything. I pulled one of them up out of the soil to see what was happening underneath, and it's actually calloused over. So that they do that right before they put out roots. So I'm hoping they'll continue to go ahead and put on roots. There's no guarantee. It was kind of a crazy time of year to do it. Winter, you stick them in the ground. But so far it's working. So it was a super easy way. I didn't have to have containers, other than the one they're in. I didn't have them in a greenhouse. I didn't have them inside the house. They lived perfectly well. Now this idea was taken really from a lot of people in late fall. They take cuttings and they dig a trench and they put them down in that trench. the cuttings, and then overwinter them, and then they root that way. And so it's not like this is something new. I just didn't think it would work in the container up here with the harsh winters we can get. And we did get a very wet, heavy snow in January. We got 5 feet, and it was so heavy it was like cement, which you've heard me talk about this before. So it was, I just thought, forget it, they're not going to do anything, and it seems like they are. And then I did another one in the back when I pruned after the snow, and after the snow melted, there was a bunch of branches or canes on my white iceberg rose, and it, I've got bugs flying all over. Sorry, they distract me. My white iceberg rose, and I had to cut a bunch of those off, the ones that were broken, and I stuck them in a container and back. Just stuck some of the prunings, and they seem to be going. So we'll see how that really pans out in the long run, and I'll be sure and share with you. Okay, I think I can fit one more in here, and then I have to do it in a different container, and I will do that while you're not on the camera, because you don't need it. It's just the same thing as I'm doing now, just cutting off all these side branches and nipping it down to size. Yep, I can just cut that off right there. You don't have to have any leaves on it. I'm going to go ahead and wound this one. Just because. And then paint it. I got dirt all over this. You can also just stick it in there, but I like to paint it up further. You never know when something up higher is going to root too. Just more chances for it to root. And same deal. Stick it down in there. And as I have shared before in my videos, I really like the cups because you can see the roots later. Against the white, it is harder. Now, I will put this, once I get the lid on it, let me get those through there. Now, before I do that, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to put some sand on top because the sand kind of helps prevent fungus that may be in the potting soil, etc. And it helps it retain the moisture. And it just looks nicer to me. Okay, so let's do this. Put it in here. Put these through the hole. Put them through the hole. That's kind of pushing it there. Work it on there. Seal it. And then I'm going to write on it. My pen is missing. I'm going to write on it that where I got this because I will forget through the summer. And then I'm going to go put it by the studio where it's going to get a little bit of morning sun, but then afternoon shade since it's been so warm. So I'm going to go show you that, and then I'm going to take you and I'm going to show you those cuttings that I started in the pots up there from over the winter, and you can see how they're doing. So right down here is where I placed them. Here's some hostas. Here's the one in the cup, and then I put the smaller cuttings that were cut off the top of these. I don't know if they'll take, but I put them in terracotta pot, and I have, this is an old mayonnaise jar on top, and this gets morning sun but afternoon shade, and it's always kind of damp here, so the humidity here, I think that will help them to go ahead and root. So that's my plan. We'll check up on them later and see how they do. Now I'm going to show you those ones out front. So here is one of those cuttings I was telling you about. Look at all those leaves on it. And then there's, oh, is that the one? Yeah, I think that's the first one. Then there's one here. That one's looking a little, that one's no longer leafing out, so that one may be dying. But this is the one I had pulled out, and it has the callousing on the bottom. So I have high hopes of that one taking. And I'm hand holding the camera, so if it's a little jiggly, you'll understand. I'm going to walk you around to the other side and we'll check on the others. It's been a couple days since I checked on them. And it looks like I need to water these tubs. Let me go around the tripod. It was too hard to try to get the tripod down here. But okay, so here, this one's also drying up. This one's looking a little iffy. And this one's still doing good. It's got a new growth out there. Now, this isn't surprising with it heating up. That one's still leafy on the other side, but looks like it might be succumbing. So If I got 2 out of this, I'd be if I got 1 out of this experiment, I would be thrilled. But that's the state. Up until just a couple days ago, these were really green. So I don't know if it's because it got so warm so quick or what the deal is, but it was just an experiment and no loss. Those cuttings were just prunings off the Eden rose, and we're going to be tossed in the compost heap anyways. So yes, I do compost my roses because I don't have any disease problems. Healthy soil means healthy plants, means no disease. I am risking it. So if you don't want to put them in your compost pile, so be it. That's your choice. But I do. I compost just about everything I can. And I don't worry too much as long as I have good, healthy soil. Look at those tulips in there. Aren't they gorgeous? I'll show you my Eden that got pruned. It's right up here. And it is full of buds. And this is the one that I started by air layering. And there's a whole video on how I air... No, I don't have a video, sorry. I just have the blog post. Step by step with photographs of how I air layer roses instead of just cuttings. It takes, I shouldn't say takes longer. You get a bigger plant sooner, therefore it comes into bloom sooner than just from cuttings. So I should make a video this summer of how I air layer roses, and I think I will do that. I'll put that on my list so I don't forget. So there we have it. We started some roses. We put roses in, I should say, soil to root them, and we'll see how they do.